All right, guys. So we have Joe Biden did an interview with Lawrence O'Donnell over on MSNBC. And there's quite an admission in here about Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel. And I don't quite think Biden knows what he's admitting to here. So let's watch and then we'll react.
When I went to Israel, immediately after their attack by Hamas, 8 days later, whatever it was, and I told them we were going to help. And I said, but Bibi, I said, you can't be carpet bombing these communities. And he said to me, well, you did it. You carpet bomb, not his exact words, but you carpet bomb Berlin.
Hey, if you go back to the 1940s, hey, in the year 1248, Alexander the Great, like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? What are we doing here? That was, and by the way, this is the response from Israeli apologists. We've heard this in real time in debates and stuff. And I love how they go like, hey, remember that time in the past that was objectively more primitive and barbaric? Why can't we do what we want to do in accordance with the rules we had back then? Like, what a fucking admission that is. Holy shit.
Be carpet bombing these communities. And he said to me, well, you did it. You carpet bomb, not his exact words, but you carpet bomb Berlin. You dropped a nuclear weapon. You killed thousands of innocent people because you had to in order to win a war.
We're long past due for saying we never should have dropped those nuclear weapons on Japan. Like, never. Just incinerating innocent men, women, and children is never acceptable, ever. And if you disagree, okay, think about if it was you, or your mom, or your dad, or your son, or your daughter, or your sister, or your brother, or your grandma, or your grandpa. You have to flip it and personalize it to really understand the gravity of the immorality here. Because it's hard to get people to give a shit about other people, apparently. But if you say, what if it was you and your family? Then it's like, it seems wrong. Seems wrong to incinerate in flames from hell innocent people. But I love how this is what he's leaning, like, what? You wantonly massacre civilians on a regular basis, so why can't I? And the example he's using is from the 1940s, and he thinks it's like, oh yeah, we haven't tried to improve since then, right? Like, hey, asshole, we had the fucking Nuremberg Tribunal immediately after the war because we were like, humanity should never do any of the shit that just happened. We should never go through that again. So let's come up with new rules and laws and the international order, and let's make it mean something because we don't want to go through what we just went through ever again. And he's like, we should go back to that.
You dropped a nuclear weapon. You killed thousands of innocent people because you had to in order to win a war. I said, but that's why we came up with the UN. New deals by which what we would do relative to civilians and military.
Okay, so he gave a good response. What happened then, Joe?
So he was comparing 21st century war tactics, battle tactics, with World War II.
Well, what he was really doing is he was going after me for saying you can't indiscriminately bomb civilian areas, even if the bad guys are there. Even if the bad guys are there, you can't take out 2, 10, 12, 1,500 people, innocent people, in order to get the one bad guy. And he made a legitimate argument. His perspective said, look, these are the guys that kill my people. These are the guys that are all over in these tunnels. Nobody had any idea the miles of tunnels were down there. It's amazing what they built. And they're sometimes 200 feet under the ground. The only way to get to them is take out the places where they were under which they got to the tunnels. And so that's the first time I had the discussion about bombing civilian areas was when I went over after the 9/11, after the massacre that occurred.
So on that first trip, 10, 11 days after October 7th, you already raised the issues of how to get to a ceasefire.
Well, not a ceasefire, how to prevent innocent death.
Yes.
And then I pushed really, really hard for more humanitarian aid to go in.
Do you understand what he's admitting to there? He's saying, we had a discussion about it. We had a debate about it. And then he goes on to say at the end, and I pushed really hard about like getting humanitarian aid in. Joe, what does that mean? You pushed really hard. You're the president of the United States of America. We give Israel billions and billions of dollars in military aid and money all the time. Like, it happens endlessly. You're the boss. What you say goes. But in order for your word to have some weight to it, you would have had to say, look, if I see one story of you killing a large number of civilians, it's over. It's done. All the money's being cut off. All the weapons are being cut off, and we'll fucking sanction your ass. I will sanction you. You want the Israeli economy to collapse? Is that what you want? Because I'll make it happen. Because you are not listening to me. This is our money and our weapons, and you're bombing in our name. It's gonna stop. And if it doesn't stop, God help you. It's over. So if you really wanted to stop it, you could have stopped it. And by the way, he's also admitting, yeah, like I knew all along. Like I knew what they were doing all along. Every single step of the way, I saw it just like you saw it. Remember that story? God, man, remember that story when even Wolf Blitzer was in awe when he was dumbstruck? Because there was like, what was it? I think it was a refugee camp, and the IDF dropped a giant bomb on this camp and admittedly killed like 100 or 200 civilians, in their own words, to get one bad guy. They said that. That's what the IDF spokesperson said on CNN to Wolf Blitzer's face. And even Wolf was like, Jesus Christ. I think that may have happened immediately after this conversation that Netanyahu had with Biden. Biden brings up, hey, you can't kill all these people to get one bad guy. And then Netanyahu does exactly that. And then what does Biden do? He keeps sending the money. He keeps sending the weapons. What a weak, ineffectual man. Do you understand how pathetic this is, Joe? You're admitting that you knew how barbaric, how savage, how illegal, how genocidal the actions were of the Israeli government. And all you did is had a discussion with Netanyahu and then, quote, pushed really hard. Not to get a ceasefire, according to his own words, but to allow in humanitarian aid. The history books are going to be fucking brutal and ruthless to Joe Biden. Rightly so. Rightly so. Because guys, don't take my word for it. You go back and read about it. But Ronald Reagan picked up the phone, called Israel, and said, hey, what you're doing in Lebanon looks like a Holocaust. And then they stopped it immediately. George H.W. Bush said, look, I'll condition loan guarantees to you only if you freeze illegal settlements. And then what happened? They froze the illegal settlements because they wanted the money. You have all the leverage in the world. You give them all the money in the world. They're so reliant on us endlessly. And I recommended X, Y, or Z. He's fucking playing you for a fool. He's spitting in your eye. You tell him not to do something, he does it the next day, and you still send money and weapons. Of course he's going to fucking keep doing it. It's called a basic incentive here. You would have had to make a point. Sorry, no more money, no more weapons, you're done. And the next time I see you do that, I'm sanctioning Israel, and I will have you fucking arrested. If you cross me again, I will have you arrested. I'll get out there and give a speech at the International Criminal Court and say we believe in the laws of the International Criminal Court and they must be upheld to protect the global order. But no, he was never going to threaten that. Why? Because Biden is a hardcore ideological committed Zionist. He is. He's said similar things for decades in the Senate, that he truly is a diehard Zionist. And so he doesn't have it in him. He doesn't believe in ever throwing his weight around, cracking down on the Israeli government, trying to reel them in, because he believes in the Zionist project. And the end result of that is what? He armed and funded a genocide, knowing what Netanyahu was doing, never adjusting course. And you had countless whistleblowers from within his own government, his own staffers, telling him day after day, sir, children are getting sniped in the head. Sir, they're pulling dead kids out from underneath the rubble and we have it on video. Sir, they're doing some of the most barbaric things we've ever seen in our lives. Sir, here's top Israeli government officials sounding like fucking Adolf Hitler in Mein Kampf on a daily basis. And he never, ever, ever actually threw his weight around. He never did it. He never did it. Joe Biden admits he warned Netanyahu to stop carpet bombing communities. Netanyahu replied by comparing Israel's actions to U.S. carpet bombing of Berlin and dropping nuclear bombs. Biden essentially admits he allowed Netanyahu to carpet bomb Gaza for over 15 months and commit genocide, providing almost $30 billion in military aid and weapon shipments. Genocide Joe is as guilty as Netanyahu for the horrors we have witnessed in Gaza. Hear, hear. He just is. He just is. And, like he really has overseen the collapse of the global order, of international law, because now it's so obvious that it's a farce. It's so obvious that it's not real. It's so obvious that it's selectively applied. You know, George W. Bush really started that process of like, yeah, international law, international law, we do what we want, right? But I mean, he may have shot a dead horse, but he really lit that fucking dead horse up, bro. He put like 500 more rounds into that dead horse. Biden did, with the actions of the Israeli government and us continuing to arm and fund it. So this is not the world I want to live in, but ladies and gentlemen, you and I both know we now live in a world where might makes right, and that's the end of it. There are no rules. There are no laws. There is no justice. And I cannot express to you the amount of extreme anger and vitriol I have. I mean, my blood is boiling over that reality because I want to live in a world where that matters. I want to live in a world where there are rules and there are laws and there is a system and it is fair and we do try our best. And we don't live in that system. We don't. And it's because of Joe Biden's weakness and refusing to make Netanyahu fall in line. That's why we are where we are. All right, guys. That's the show, y'all. Love y'all very much. Everybody do me a big favor. Please click like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. Thank you to everybody who supports this show on Patreon. That link's below if you'd like to help out, or the thanks button on YouTube as well. It's basically a tip button. Thank you to everybody who does support this show. It means the world couldn't do it without you guys. I've never talked to an advertiser. I'm very proud of that. We fund this show because of you guys, basically monthly contributions. And yeah, here we are, man. Inauguration Day. The beginning of the longest 4 years ever starts right now. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.